What makes a cartoon unforgettable isn't how long it runs, but how deeply it sticks in your memory. Some shows burned brighter than Saturday morning ever expected and then vanished before their time. You ever watch a cartoon so creative, it made you wonder why the network pulled the plug? Today, we're opening that vault of lost brilliance. From cosmic heroes to metallic birdmen, these are the shows that deserved more than a handful of episodes. Let's rewind to the golden glow of the 70s and 80s. Thundar the Barbarian, 1980 to 1982. Before He-Man swung his sword, there was Thundar. Picture this, a crumbling Earth-split moon overhead, magic and machines ruling what's left of civilization. Into this wasteland rides Thundar, a wild-eyed warrior with a glowing sun sword, and two loyal friends, Princess Ariel, the smart sorceress, and Ukla, the Mok, a beastly but lovable powerhouse. Together they roamed through ruins and strange kingdoms, battling wizards and monsters in half-hour bursts of pure, pulpy adventure. The show was created by animation legends Joe Ruby and Ken Spears, with input from comic icons like Steve Gerber and Alex Toth. The mix of science fiction and fantasy was ahead of its time, an apocalyptic fairy tale that somehow felt both ancient and futuristic. The action? Electric? The world building? Massive. Yet despite its imagination, the series ran only 21 episodes before networks moved on to safer, toy-driven shows. Thundar was more than muscle and magic. It was a love letter to storytelling itself, daring to show a broken world still full of hope. Its visual design would influence later shows, from He-Man to Conan's animated adventures. Decades later, fans still trade VHS copies, hungry for that glow of post-apocalyptic wonder. In an era full of bright tights and robots, Thundar stood tall, a sword-wielding reminder that courage doesn't fade even when the moon does. Dungeons & Dragons, 1983 to 1985. If you ever wanted to step inside a fantasy world, this show did exactly that. A group of friends hops onto a roller coaster at an amusement park, and in the blink of an eye, they're transported into another realm, armed with magical weapons and guided by the cryptic dungeon master they face, creatures, curses, and moral challenges that test more than just their courage. Every episode of Dungeons & Dragons felt like an adventure straight from the tabletop, full of danger, loyalty, and the dream of one day finding a way back home. What made this series stand out wasn't just its fantasy setting, it was its respect for the audience. The writing trusted kids to handle complexity. The heroes dealt with fear, jealousy, and tough choices, showing that courage wasn't just about fighting monsters. It was about facing yourself. The animation by Marvel Productions added a cinematic edge, painting a world that felt both beautiful and dangerous. Then, just as the story deepened, it ended. Suddenly, without closure. Fans spent decades craving answers. A final script later revealed that Venger, their greatest enemy, was once the Dungeon Master's fallen son. Even unfinished Dungeons & Dragons remains unforgettable proof that the best adventures never really end. Ulysses 31, 1981 to 1982. Now imagine Homer's Odyssey, but in space. That's Ulysses 31, a bold French-Japanese collaboration that sent the ancient Greek hero rocketing into the 31st century. When Ulysses destroys the Cyclops to save his son, the gods of Olympus curse him to wander through the galaxy until he finds the kingdom of Hades. His crew is frozen in suspended animation, and only his determination keeps him going. The art style was mesmerizing European design, blended with Japanese animation sleekness. Each frame looked like a painting paired with an unforgettable synth soundtrack that screamed 80s space opera. The show balanced mythology and science fiction with surprising grace, introducing kids to moral lessons hidden beneath laser beams and cosmic storms. Yet it only lasted 26 episodes. Blame it on production costs or its slightly philosophical tone, but Ulysses 31 became a cult treasure rather than a mainstream hit. Still, its influence rippled across later anime, and even Western shows like Samurai Jack and Star Wars. Rebels. Watching it now feels like opening a time capsule of pure creativity. It's moody, poetic, and strangely haunting, the kind of cartoon that lingers in your head long after the credits roll. Ulysses 31 didn't just adapt ancient myth. It reimagined it for a generation that dreamed beyond the stars. Silverhawks, 1986 to 1987. Half human, half metal, all attitude. Silverhawks blasted onto screens as the futuristic cousin of Thundercats created by the same studio. It followed a team of cyborg heroes fighting the shape-shifting crime Lord Monstar and his gang of space crooks. Each hawk had metallic wings, retractable masks, and sleek armor that gleamed under the neon glow of space. The show looked incredible: bold colors, futuristic vehicles, and a soundtrack that pulsed like an 80s arcade. The opening sequence alone could power a nostalgia trip all by itself. But beyond the shimmer and shine, Silverhawks had heart. Commander Stargazer's gruff leadership, Copper Kid's robotic chirps, and the family-like bond among the crew gave it soul beneath the steel. Despite high production values and a toy line ready for stardom, Silverhawks didn't soar for long. It was expensive to make, and the stories leaned darker than networks preferred. Only 65 episodes were produced, a big number for syndication, but not enough for the legend it could have become. Today, Silverhawks stands as one of the coolest, underappreciated space shows ever made. It fused music motion and metallic mystique into something unforgettable. If you ever wanted proof that animation could look like a rock concert in orbit, this was it. The wings may have folded, but the legend never rusted. Inhumanoids, 1986 to 1987. Before dark cartoons were trendy, Inhumanoids dared to dig deep, literally. The story followed EarthCore, a team of scientists who uncovered massive ancient creatures slumbering beneath the planet's crust. These weren't your friendly Saturday mascots. They were eerie beings like Tendril and Metlar, designed to thrill and unsettle in equal measure. Created by the same team behind G.I. Joe and Transformers, the show fused science fiction suspense and heroics in a way that made kids feel they were watching something daringly different. It wasn't truly frightening, but it wasn't gentle either, just the right edge of weird. Despite bold storytelling and striking visuals, the series was short-lived. The toy line faltered, networks hesitated, and Inhumanoids quietly disappeared after one season. Yet those who saw it never forgot. Its moody art style and creature designs influenced later fantasy and sci-fi shows that pushed creative limits. Inhumanoids was bold, bizarre, and beautifully ahead of its time, the kind of show that crawled under your imagination and stayed there. It proved that even in a world of toys and bright colors, courage and creativity could thrive in the shadows, leaving behind an underground legacy that still rumbles decades later. Mask, 1985 to 1986. Before there were big-screen blockbusters about transforming cars, Mask did it first, and arguably better. The show followed Matt Tracker, a millionaire adventurer who forms a secret team to battle the sinister organization known as Venom. Their vehicles weren't just cool rides; they could morph into flying machines or battle tanks, each paired with a unique mask granting special abilities. It was action, mystery, and imagination all jammed into 22 minutes of animated glory. The animation looked surprisingly cinematic for its time. Every chase sequence was staged like a spy movie, complete with roaring engines, split-second transformations, and the kind of 80s synth score that makes you want to grab your toy collection and stage an epic battle across the living room. Each episode was fast, loud, and loaded with gadgets, but still managed to sneak in themes of teamwork, loyalty, and doing the right thing even when it wasn't easy. So, why did it end so soon? The second season switched gears, focusing on racing rather than crime fighting, and fans weren't thrilled. Toy sales slipped, the network lost interest, and by 1986, Mask quietly disappeared. But its influence never did. Its DNA is everywhere, from Transformers to Power Rangers. If you ever wondered what would happen if James Bond met Saturday morning cartoons, Mask was the answer. It was daring, stylish, and way too fun to fade away so fast. For those who grew up watching vehicles transform mid-air, it wasn't just a cartoon, it was a dream you could drive. Galaxy High School, 1986 to 1987. What if the new kid at school wasn't from another town, but another planet? That was the zany setup behind Galaxy High School, a delightfully offbeat sci-fi comedy about two Earth teens suddenly enrolled in a high school full of wild alien classmates. Created by Chris Columbus and directed by John Kricfalusi, it turned the familiar teen sitcom upside down. Gone were lockers and pep rallies replaced by floating hallways, talking cafeteria food, and interplanetary gossip. Doyle, the overconfident jock, and Amy, the shy overachiever, learned that fitting in meant more than popularity when your classmates had tentacles or three heads. The animation was bursting with neon color and energy. Each frame glowed with creativity, shape-shifting bullies flying skateboards, and cosmic classrooms that spun through space. Beneath all the chaos, though, was genuine warmth. The show explored friendship, self-discovery, and acceptance without ever feeling preachy. Only 13 episodes aired before it vanished into cult legend. Its humor was just too quirky for network executives who preferred simpler fare. Yet decades later, Galaxy High still feels fresh, a cosmic time capsule of pure imagination. The New Adventures of Flash Gordon, 1979 to 1982. Before superheroes filled every screen, Flash Gordon was the original cosmic champion, and Filmation's The New Adventures of Flash Gordon brought him back with stunning hand-painted animation and true pulp-era spirit. Staying faithful to the classic comics, Flash Dale Arden and Dr. Zarkov raced to planet Mongo to battle the ruthless Ming the Merciless. What made this version special was its cinematic ambition. The first season was fully serialized with cliffhangers carrying over episode to episode, just like the adventure reels of the 1930s. Filmation used rotoscoping to give the characters lifelike motion, and the backdrops were breathtaking alien jungles, glittering cities, and stormy cosmic vistas that looked like sci-fi paintings in motion. But as the network grew wary of the darker tone and ongoing plot lines, Season 2 switched to lighter standalone episodes. The magic dimmed, and soon the show faded from the airwaves. Still, for animation fans, it remains a landmark bridging the old pulp serials with modern adventure cartoons. With courage color and timeless creativity, The New Adventures of Flash Gordon captured everything wondrous about space opera storytelling and left behind a legacy that still inspires starry-eyed dreamers everywhere. Black Star, 1981. Before Eternia, there was Sagar, a strange world of magic, science, and rebellion. Black Star, another Filmation production, introduced John Blackstar, a stranded astronaut who becomes a hero in a realm ruled by the evil Overlord. His weapon, the Star Sword, held half of a mystical power source, while his enemy wielded the other half, the Power Sword. Yes, it sounds familiar, and for good reason. Blackstar laid the groundwork for He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. The show was lush with imagination, flying dragons, shape-shifting creatures, and a loyal band of allies called the Trobbits, tiny, fuzzy sidekicks that looked like cousins of the Smurfs. The series balanced action and heart, always returning to the theme of freedom and courage in a world ruled by darkness. The character designs by animation legend Phil Barlow gave it a unique look, blending barbarian fantasy with sleek sci-fi touches. The voice cast, including George DiCenzo and Linda Gary, later carried over into other Filmation hits. But Blackstar aired only 13 episodes before being canceled, right as its creative potential was about to explode. Why? Timing. He-Man arrived soon after, grabbing the spotlight and much of the merchandising energy. Still, Blackstar fans argue it was the purer story, less commercial, more mystical, and beautifully hand-drawn. Rewatching Blackstar today feels like discovering the missing link between 70s adventure and 80s fantasy. It burned bright and fast, a cosmic spark that helped ignite a golden era of heroic animation. Dino Riders, 1988. When it came to childhood fantasies, Dino Riders hit the jackpot, dinosaurs with armor, telepathic riders, and a story that felt bigger than Saturday morning. The peaceful Valorians fled through time to escape the villainous Rulons landing 65 million years in the past. There, they bonded with dinosaurs, while the Rulons used mind control devices to enslave others. Each episode was pure spectacle, stampeding Stegosaurus herds, swooping pteranodons and triceratops, charging like living tanks. Yet beneath the explosions and color, the show carried a message about empathy and teamwork. It taught that even in chaos, compassion could win the day. Only 14 episodes were made, but the impact was huge. Tycho partnered with Marvel Productions to support a toy line. Yet the series never felt like a commercial. Its visuals were vibrant, its characters sincere, especially Questar, a calm, wise leader in a decade full of shouting heroes. Its cancellation came down to timing. The market was overflowing with action cartoons. Still, Dino Riders carved its own niche as an imaginative, heartfelt adventure. Watching it now feels like revisiting a lost childhood dream when dinosaurs weren't museum pieces, but loyal allies racing across prehistoric worlds that only animation could bring to life. RoboCop, the animated series, 1988. It was a daring idea: take a gritty science fiction film about a wounded cop reborn as a cybernetic hero and turn it into a cartoon for kids. Yet somehow RoboCop, the animated series, pulled it off. Produced by Marvel Productions, it recast Alex Murphy as a symbol of hope rather than despair, patrolling the futuristic streets of old Detroit with empathy and unshakable duty. Each episode balanced sleek action with moral storytelling. Themes of justice, loyalty, and integrity ran through the series, giving kids something to think about between the car chases and tech-filled missions. The animation was polished, colorful, and surprisingly cinematic, showing RoboCop gliding across neon skylines and confronting villains with heart as much as hardware. Supporting characters like Officer Ann Lewis and the stern Lieutenant Hedgecock grounded the story in humanity. Only 12 episodes were made before it was canceled, too mature for children, too gentle for adults. Still, its legacy endures as one of the boldest animated adaptations of its time. RoboCop. The animated series proved that heroism doesn't depend on perfection. Sometimes it's simply about holding the line even when the world forgets your name, a timeless lesson wrapped in metal and heart. Bionic 6, 1987 to 1988. If there was ever a cartoon that deserved more love, it was Bionic 6. It had everything: a superpowered family cinematic animation and stories packed with heart. The show followed Professor Sharp and his family, who gained incredible abilities after a scientific accident. Together they battled villains, saved lives, and tackled everyday family struggles, only with jetpacks, lasers, and flying cars. Each member had a distinct power, from super strength to enhanced senses brought to life through fluid animation by Japan's TMS studio, whose vibrant colors and motion stood far above most 80s shows. And who could forget that theme song? We Are Bionic 6. It still echoes in the memories of anyone who grew up with it. But what made Bionic 6 truly special was its warmth. It wasn't just about fighting evil, it was about love, loyalty, and sticking together. The show handled emotions like jealousy and forgiveness as skillfully as it did action scenes. Unfortunately, its high-quality production was also its downfall. The cost was too high, the toys didn't sell, and it ended after just 2 seasons. Still, its legacy lives on a bright, heartfelt reminder that the strongest power any hero can have is family. The Herculoids, 1978 to 1981. Long before Star Wars or He-Man Hanna-Barbera's The Herculoids showed what animated space adventure could be. First launched in the late 60s and briefly revived in the late 70s for the all-new Super Friends Hour, it built a loyal cult following that still remembers every creature and clash. The premise was simple yet powerful. A family of heroes, Xandor Tara and their son Dorno, defending planet Quasar with their extraordinary companions. There was Igu, the mighty rock giant, Zok, the laser-breathing dragon, Tundro part rhinoceros, part cannon, and the gelatinous Gloop and Gleep lovable blobs who could stretch, bounce, and save the day. Episodes were pure old-school adventure, bright, fast, and brimming with heart. It was good versus evil at its most colorful, and the family's unity gave every battle emotional weight. The later revival boasted smoother animation and sharper action, but struggled to compete with newer, flashier shows. Even so, the Herculoids left fingerprints on everything from Voltron to Avatar. The Last Airbender. It proved that imagination, not dialogue, drives timeless storytelling. Watching it today feels like stepping back into a universe built on wonder, when heroism roared across alien skies, and adventure itself was the only language needed. Battle of the Planets, 1978 to 1980. Long before anime became a worldwide phenomenon, Battle of the Planets served as the bridge, the show that quietly introduced American audiences to Japanese animation without them even knowing. Adapted from Science Ninja Team Gatchaman, it followed 5 young heroes, Mark Jason, Princess Tiny, and Kiop, known as G-Force, defending Earth from cosmic threats. The show mixed futuristic design with gripping storytelling, highlighting teamwork, sacrifice, and courage. U.S. producers re-edited and dubbed the original, adding new footage and the robot, 7zark7, to soften darker moments, yet its cinematic flair remained. The result was unlike anything else on American TV, fast, emotional, and cool. Kids were hooked by its sleek ships, fiery phoenix transformations, and epic fight sequences. It was bold, serialized animation that treated its audience with respect. But high production costs and uneven syndication clipped its wings after 85 episodes. Later reboots, G-Force, Guardians of Space, and Eagle Riders tried to recapture the spark, but none matched its intensity. Looking back, Battle of the Planets was more than a cartoon. It was a cultural handshake between East and West, proving that animation could tell stories as big as any film. It ended too soon, but its influence still burns bright across the stars. Some cartoons fade quietly, while others echo across generations, whispering from dusty VHS tapes and YouTube clips. These 15 shows didn't just entertain. They inspired artists, writers, and dreamers who kept the spark alive long after the screens went dark. So, which of these lost treasures did you grow up watching? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into forgotten classics, because sometimes the shortest stories shine the longest.